Welcome back, strangers. On August 29, 2005, the levees protecting the city of New Orleans experienced over 50 failures when Hurricane Katrina made landfall. Billions of gallons of water flooded the city and surrounding areas. More than 800,000 people were displaced from their homes after more than 80% of all structures in the city sustained water damage. During Hurricane Katrina, families of patients and employees took shelter at Lindy Boggs Medical Center. They were confident that the building was well built and seemed to be the best choice of where to ride out the storm. The hospital was nearing full capacity, but managed to have enough space for everyone that was taking shelter there. During the storm, the building itself experienced minimal damage, and everything continued to operate smoothly until the levees broke and water flooded the city. The flash flood overwhelmed the generators that were in the basement, causing the hospital to lose all power and be filled with panic. Communication inside the building and to the outside world were cut off. Doctors couldn't conduct life-saving surgeries on patients. Life support machines couldn't operate without the emergency power that the generators provided. Staff had to resort to using manual ventilators to save patients. During the first night without generators, 19 people died, while residents from all over New Orleans rushed inside the hospital, believing that it was the safest place in the city. Soon, over 500 people found themselves taking shelter in the lobby of the hospital. Their food supplies began to deplete, and the smell of garbage from the growing trash piles left inside permeated the building. Staff ran out of blood for transfusions, and they were slowly running out of medicine. The heat inside the hospital was rising, the air conditioners were not working, and the humidity, along with the body heat, caused temperatures inside to rise to over 100 degrees. Patients were at risk from the heat, and more deaths were happening every hour. There were 120 patients and over 500 people stranded inside the hospital. It was a living hell, and with communication to the outside world cut off, no one knew if help was ever coming. The situation seemed hopeless. Doctors decided to evacuate the hospital one by one, so a few brave staff members waded through the 5-foot-deep floodwaters to get the boats across the street. It took 2 days before help officially came. Rescuers tagged the hospital as a mass casualty incident due to the 45 deaths caused by the storm and generators being flooded. Lindy Boggs Medical Center was deemed too damaged to continue operating. It was abandoned due to safety concerns. Vagrants and homeless people took shelter in the old hospital. It soon became a favorite spot for teenagers looking to party, vandals, and urban explorers. In 2013, a Catholic nonprofit decided to renovate part of the building to use as a nursing facility. However, the city government didn't begin the cleanup effort on the building until 2017. The Environmental Protection Agency funded the removal of asbestos and other hazardous medical waste that had been left inside. Unfortunately, despite the efforts, the old building remains abandoned. Since then, the haunted reputation of the hospital has grown through the years. Visitors have reported seeing ghosts of patients laying in their deathbeds, begging for help or for someone to come in their misery. They are stuck, reliving their final moments, over and over. Wheezing, coughing, and other sounds have been heard coming from the empty rooms. Some have even reported that they could hear the broken medical monitors beeping like they were still functioning all these years later. It's very common to hear the wails and sobs of ghostly patients and family members throughout the building. The unfortunate souls echoing throughout the abandoned hospital, still trapped inside, unable to break free from their most painful memories. This residual pain may be the cause of the dark presence that people have reported feeling inside the building. Blood-curdling screams are often heard coming from deep within the hospital. Some have spoke of floating orbs appearing in front of their eyes. Others who were unlucky have felt invisible hands being placed on them and around their necks. Phantom footsteps often follow those who are brave enough to explore the building, almost as if there's something making sure that those exploring do not disturb what is left of the old abandoned hospital. A demonic presence is said to come after those who vandalize or disrespect the old abandoned hospital. Strangers, would you take a chance and spend a night in the old Lindy Boggs Medical Center? Six Flags New Orleans originally opened in 2000 as Jazzland. It was a 140-acre theme park that catered to the very colorful jazz history of the city. Unfortunately, while New Orleans is known for jazz music, there wasn't enough jazz fans traveling to Louisiana to keep Jazzland afloat. It was only open for a little over a year before the company sold the park to Six Flags Entertainment. The new owners completely renovated the property to draw in more visitors from all over. By the start of 2005, the company was planning to add a water park to go with all the recently added attractions. Six Flags was preparing to announce the news in August of 2005, but it was postponed when Hurricane Katrina hit the city. The park stopped operations on August 21st, 2005 to prepare for the storm, with plans to reopen for a weekend before school resumed. Unfortunately, the park never opened again. Most of the park was flooded and submerged for over a month in water that reached up to 7 feet deep in some areas. Much of the floodwater contained corrosive salt water that damaged most of the rides beyond repair. All development plans for the property have fallen through. Proposals for the site have included multiple amusement parks, an outlet mall named Jazzland, and even a plan to build a power plant on the old site. Until then, Six Flags New Orleans sits abandoned, still hoping for the return of happy visitors that once frequented the park. The city has banned visitors from the park due to safety concerns, but this hasn't stopped brave explorers from risking getting charged with trespassing, or a chance to be one of the few lucky enough to explore the abandoned park. Today, the park is left as a haunted playground for the lingering spirits of New Orleans. Urban explorers have reported hearing unexplained sounds throughout the old park. Some say they felt like someone was watching them as they made their way through the abandoned grounds. Children's laughter and the sound of non-functioning ride motors can be heard within the park buildings. Many report hearing whispering coming from inside the walls when they enter one of the rides. Locals claim to see lights coming from inside the abandoned theme park, which no one can truly explain since the park has been without power since 2005. Visitors claim that rides will start up on their own, and that surrounding lights will begin to flicker as if the dead park was trying to come back to life and once again bring joy to those visiting the park. Would you take a chance and risk it all to explore the haunted park before it slowly decays and completely rots away? You have to hurry before nature reclaims the land and you miss your chance. The surrounding area of the park has become a swampy wildlife reserve. We saw a giant snake while we were there, and the property is supposedly home to alligators, wild boars, fire ants, and water moccasins. So visit at your own risk. Before Hurricane Katrina, Charity Hospital was the second oldest and second largest hospital in the United States. It was one of two teaching hospitals that were part of the Medical Center of Louisiana at New Orleans and owned by the Louisiana State University system. It primarily served the poor and needy of New Orleans. During Hurricane Katrina, the hospital was not evacuated. Instead, the staff established a temporary clinic named the Spirit of Charity to cater to the people who were injured during the storm. When the levees broke, the water began pouring into the basement and flooded the generators, leaving 360 patients and 1,200 staff members trapped inside the old building without power. The floodwater reached the emergency room, operating room, and morgue, forcing patients to be moved to the higher floors. The bodies of the dead were moved and stacked in the stairwells. It took 5 days before all patients and staff could be evacuated from the hospital. The bathroom overflowed with waste. It was hot and miserable for all those trapped inside. Patients were evacuated based on the severity of their condition. The bodies of the dead were left behind until they could be retrieved later. 3 weeks after the events of Hurricane Katrina, the governor of Louisiana announced that Charity Hospital would not reopen. The hospital was abandoned and has remained that way ever since. Today, the hospital remains as a ghost of the city's past. The property is guarded and patrolled 24 hours a day by security and police. Thrill seekers and urban explorers who managed to get inside the old hospital say it is in pristine condition for a building that has been abandoned since 2005. Hospital carts are still fully stocked with supplies, and patient records are still stored within filing cabinets. Charts and notes that contain information about patients are still left exactly where they were when the storm hit. Only materials that would eventually rot were removed from the building by city officials. Even the most prepared urban explorers visiting the hospital report encountering things they never expected. Many say they have experienced things they can't quite explain, from seeing shadowy figures in patient rooms to hearing faint voices coming from the end of the hospital halls, despite knowing that no one else is on that floor of the building but them. Charity Hospital operated continuously for almost 3 centuries. Countless souls entered and left this world through the halls of charity. The trauma from Katrina only added to the residual energy left lingering in the old hospital halls. Those exploring the building must be careful and respectful of the final stop in life of so many departed souls. There is no reported demonic or evil presence in Charity like Lindy Boggs. What resides there is thought to be friendly and even playful. One of the most reported sightings is the appearance of Christmas tree lights in one of the empty rooms. The lights will manifest in a single room, while the rest of the building sits in darkness. Since it has been without power for over a decade, a lot of social media posts claim that they have caught the lights on camera, but that's been disputed by skeptics. It's also unsurprising that the spirits of those that have died in the hospital would want to show some Christmas spirit, even from beyond the grave. Unfortunately, the New Orleans Police Department believes that the lights are caused by break-ins by urban explorers. Or is it possible that they are covering up potential paranormal activity to discourage ghost hunters, teenagers, and vandals from visiting the old building? Strangers, are you brave enough to explore the abandoned hospital that is teeming with 3 centuries of ghosts? Thanks for watching, strangers. Which of these abandoned places would you want to visit? I know in my hometown, we really just had to worry about homeless people when we were exploring abandoned places. Imagine being a teenager in New Orleans and having all these places you could check out. Just be sure, if you're going to explore an abandoned place, you know the dangers. You could get arrested for trespassing, get hurt, or disturb the homeless people. You don't want to do that. Just do a little research beforehand and be careful and know what you're getting into. Thanks for revisiting abandoned places in New Orleans with us. What abandoned places should I check out next? Leave a comment below, let me know, and as always, stay strange.